Hello, my dear friend, and welcome to our special podcast. My name is Anna, and I am so happy you are here with me today. Today, we are going to go on a journey through time. We will visit a very special place, a place of ice and mystery and amazing stories. This is a story to help you learn English, but it is also a story about courage and change and hope. Thank you truly for spending your time with me today. I am so grateful you are here. If you enjoy our time together, please think about giving this a like, or maybe you can subscribe to our channel. When you do that, it helps our little community grow. It helps other English learners just like you find our stories. Thank you for your support. Now, before we start, I have a little question for you. Where are you listening from today? Are you in a busy city or a quiet town? Are you in Europe, Asia, Africa, the Americas? I love to imagine all the different places you are. It feels like we are all connected all around the world. Okay, my friend, are you ready? Let's begin. Today, we are going to talk about an island. But this is not a small island. This is the largest island on Earth. It is a giant. But calling it an island is not enough. It doesn't feel like the right word. Imagine a whole continent, but this continent is made of ice. So much ice. It is a continent of ice. And this giant island holds a secret. A very, very old secret. This secret started a long time ago. It started more than 4,000 years ago. Imagine that, 4,500 years. That is such a long time. This island is a special place. It is a quiet place. It feels like it is at the top of the world, a final frontier. It is hard to understand how big this place is. Let's try to imagine it. Think of a very, very big state, like Texas in America. Now, imagine a place that is 3 times bigger than Texas. That is how big this island is. It is huge. And most of this island is covered in ice, a giant sheet of ice. It is very thick and very heavy. 80% of the island is under this ice. So this place is not just a spot on a map. It is much more than that. It is a force of nature. It is powerful. It has shaped the lives of everyone who came here. Many people have tried to live on this island. The story starts thousands of years ago, with the first brave people who walked on its frozen shores. Then many years later, the legendary Vikings came. They built houses. They built churches. They built a whole world for themselves, and then they disappeared. This island has challenged everyone. It has broken some. It has transformed others. Many different groups of people have come here, wave after wave of humanity. Each group thought they could conquer this land. They thought they could win, but they all learned a lesson. The island has its own rules. You cannot conquer it. You have to learn from it. The story of this island is a saga, an epic tale. It is a story written in ice, and it is written in stone. It is a story of amazing survival. It is a story of deep mystery. And it is a story of big failure. So, who are the ghosts of this land? Who are the people who disappeared? Why did some people vanish? And why did others survive? For thousands of years, people have tried to make this place their home. Ancient hunters, legendary Vikings. This is the epic story of their lives, their survival, their mysterious disappearances. And today, a new nation is there, a modern nation, and it is fighting for its future. But the real mystery is not just about the past. It is not just about who lived and who died. The mystery is also about the future. What will this island become? And why is the whole world watching it now? Why is everyone holding their breath? The secret of this island is about its past, but it is also about what it is becoming and what it means for all of us. The name of this island is Greenland, and its story is waiting for us. Let's discover it together. Section 1. The First Footprints. To understand the secret of Greenland, we need to go back in time. Way, way back, more than 4,000 years ago, around the year 2500 BCE. This was a very long time ago. At that time, the first people arrived in Greenland. They were the first humans to ever set foot on this giant island. These people were not Vikings. The Vikings came much, much later. And they were not the ancestors of the modern Inuit people who live there today. They were a different group of people, a very ancient people. They were born in the high Arctic, a world of cold and ice. They were pioneers. They were the first to do something amazing. They made an incredible journey. They traveled from North America, from a place we now call Canada. How did they get to Greenland? They probably crossed the sea, but the sea was narrow there, and it was full of ice. It was a dangerous, difficult journey, but they made it. They were incredibly brave. Scientists and archaeologists give these first people a name. They call them the Independence One culture. Why this name? Because the first signs of them were found in a place called Independence Fjord. A fjord is a long, narrow body of water between high cliffs. This fjord was far away, very remote. Let's try to imagine their world. Imagine arriving in a new land, a land with no trees. Think about that. No wood to build a house, no wood to make a fire for warmth. It was a place of deep, deep cold. And for many months in the winter, there was no sun, just darkness. Total darkness for months. Survival was not easy. It was not a given. Every single day was a fight. A fight to stay alive against impossible odds. These first people were hunters. They were nomadic hunters. This means they did not stay in one place. They moved around, following the animals. They lived in small groups. Their families were small, and they were scattered across the land. Their whole life was connected to the animals. They hunted the mighty musk oxen on the land. Musk oxen are big, strong animals with thick fur. They also hunted seals in the freezing cold water. Ringed seals. They were very clever. They made their tools from stone. And they made tools from animal bones. Everything they had, they made themselves. What about their homes? They did not build houses of wood or stone. They lived in tents. Tents made from animal skins. To stop the tents from blowing away in the strong wind, they put a circle of stones on the bottom. Today, these circles of stones are still there. They are like ghostly footprints. They are a silent message from the past. They show us where these people lived. For almost 1,000 years, these people lived on the northern coast of Greenland. They clung to life. Their existence was fragile as a thin piece of ice. Now, at about the same time, another group of people arrived. They came to Greenland too, but they settled in a different part of the island. They lived in the south and the west. This group is called the Sakak culture. They lived near a place called Disco Bay. This area was very good for hunting. There were many animals there. The Sakak people were very, very successful. They lived in Greenland for a very long time. Almost 1,700 years. Think about that. 1,700 years. This makes them the longest continuous inhabitants in all of Greenland's history. No other group has lived there for so long without a break. And we know something amazing about the Sakak people. Scientists found something incredible. They found a piece of hair. This hair was frozen in the ground for 4,000 years. It belonged to a Sakak man. From this single piece of hair, scientists learned so much. They could tell a story written in his genes. They gave him a nickname. They called him Anuk. What did they learn about Inuk? They learned that he had brown eyes, he had dark hair, and he had a special type of blood. His genes showed that his ancestors were not from Greenland. They were from a place far, far away, a place called northeastern Siberia. So his people, the Sakak, traveled a very, very long way to get to Greenland. These first two groups, the Independence One and the Sakak, were called Paleo-Inuit. Paleo means very old. They were the first wave, the first people to test themselves against this giant land of ice. They hunted seals, they hunted seabirds, they lived in small tents. They survived. But Greenland is a hard place to live. The island is a harsh mistress. This means it is beautiful, but it is also very demanding and unforgiving. And then something changed. Around the year 800 BCE, the climate got colder. Life became even harder. And the Sakak culture vanished. They disappeared. The Independence One people were already gone by then. After them, other groups came. People like the Independence Two culture and the Dorset culture. They brought new ideas, new ways of living, but they all faced the same problem. The environment was always changing, and they had to adapt. The Dorset people arrived around the year 700 CE. They were amazing artists. They left behind beautiful, haunting carvings, little sculptures made from bone and ivory. They were masters of the sea ice. They knew how to live and hunt on the frozen ocean. But even they could not stay forever. The climate changed again, and the Dorset people also declined. They also disappeared. For a while after the Dorset people left, Greenland might have been empty again, completely empty of all humans. A silent white continent of ice. Just waiting. These first peoples were the true pioneers of Greenland. They were not building empires. They were not trying to conquer the land. They were survivors. Their goal was to live another day, to see the sun again after the long winter darkness. And they proved something important. They proved that human life was possible here, even at the very edge of the world. But their disappearance is the first part of Greenland's big secret. The island does not give itself up easily. It does not let you win. It asks for something from you. It demands constant adaptation. You have to be ready to change. When the climate shifts, when the weather gets colder or warmer, everything changes. The animals move. The ice grows or shrinks. If you cannot change with it, you will not survive. The island can erase entire civilizations from its frozen memory, just like it did with the Paleo-Inuit. Their story is a warning, a lesson for everyone who came after them. Because the next group of people to arrive would be very different. They did not come from the West, from North America. They came from the East, from Europe. And they brought with them new things. They brought iron tools. They brought farm animals like cows and sheep. And they brought a belief. They believed they could tame this wild land. They believed they could make it their own forever. They were the Norse. We also call them the Vikings. and their story in Greenland would become the most famous mystery of all. Section 2. The Age of Vikings. The story of the Vikings in Greenland is fascinating. It does not start with a big army or a plan for conquest. It starts with a fight. It starts with a man who was forced to leave his home. And it starts with a desperate search for a new place to live. That man's name was Eric the Red. He was a Viking from Iceland. Around the year 982, Eric got into big trouble. The stories say he killed some of his neighbors after a quarrel. Because of this, he was exiled. This means he was kicked out of Iceland. He could not live there anymore. He had to find a new home. He remembered hearing stories about a huge unknown land to the west. Another sailor had seen it many years before when his ship was blown off course by a storm. For Eric, this was a chance, a new beginning. So he got a crew together, he found a ship, and he sailed west. Not to a place he knew. He sailed into the great unknown. For 3 years, Eric explored this new land. He sailed along the southwestern coast. He found a very harsh landscape, lots of ice and rock, but he also found something good. He found long, deep fjords. These fjords protected the land from the ocean storms. And inside these fjords, something amazing happened in the summer. The land became green. There were meadows with grass and flowers. Eric realized this land could support animals. You could have a farm here. He also saw some old things. Traces of the first people who had lived there, the Paleo-Inuit. But at that time, the land seemed to be empty. There was nobody there. Now, Eric the Red was not just an explorer. He was also a very smart man, a brilliant marketer. He knew he needed other people to come with him. He could not build a new colony all by himself. So he sailed back to Iceland. And he started to tell people about the new land. And he did a masterful piece of public relations, a bit of marketing. He gave the land a very attractive name. He called it Greenland. Why did he call it Greenland? He thought a pleasant name would make people want to go there. If he called it Iceland number 2, maybe nobody would come. But Greenland, that sounds nice. It sounds green and warm and full of life. And his plan worked perfectly. In the year 985, a huge group of people decided to follow him. They set out from Iceland in a fleet of 25 longships. These ships were filled with men, women, and children. They also brought their animals, cows, sheep, and goats. They were bringing their entire lives with them. But the journey was incredibly hard. The North Atlantic Ocean is a dangerous place. A terrible storm hit the fleet. Only 14 ships made it to Greenland. 11 ships were lost. But still, about 700 people landed safely. They were ready. Ready to build a new life. Ready to build a new Norway at the top of the world. They started 2 main settlements or colonies. The first one was called the Eastern Settlement. It was in the south and it was the bigger and richer of the 2. The second one was called the Western Settlement. It was much smaller and it was hundreds of kilometers to the north. And their society grew. At its peak, the Norse population in Greenland was probably between 2,000 and 5,000 people. This was a real European society, with farms and families and churches, a thriving community in the middle of the Arctic. What was their life like? They were farmers, first and foremost, but they also hunted. This is an important point. They tried to live like they did back home in Norway or Iceland. They tried to copy and paste their Scandinavian lifestyle onto this new land. They built strong houses. The walls were made of stone and turf. Turf is like a block of soil with grass on top. These walls were very thick to keep out the cold, biting wind. They raised animals, cattle, sheep, and goats. This was possible because they arrived at a lucky time. The weather was a little bit warmer than usual. This time is now called the medieval warm period. But even with the warmer weather, farming was always difficult. Life was always on the edge. The growing season for grass was very short. If they had one bad summer, their animals might not have enough food for the long winter. And if the animals died, the people would starve. So they had to find other food. They supplemented their diet. This means they added to it. They hunted seals, they hunted caribou, which are like reindeer, and they hunted walrus. The Norse Greenlanders were also very religious. They were Christians. In fact, Eric the Red's own son is famous for bringing Christianity to Greenland. His name was Leif Erikson. Yes, this is the same Leif Erikson who sailed even further west. He is the man who explored the coast of North America around the year 1000, about 500 years before Christopher Columbus. So, the people in Greenland built many churches, dozens of them. They even had a big cathedral. A cathedral at a place called Gardar. The church in Europe even sent a bishop all the way to Greenland in the year 1126. Today, you can still see the ruins of one of their churches. Valsey Church. The stone walls are still standing, tall and strong after all these centuries. It is a silent reminder of their faith and a testament to their ambition. They wanted to build a European Christian world that would last forever. But this society could not survive on its own. It needed a connection to Europe. Its lifeblood was trade. The Norse Greenlanders had one special product, something that was very, very valuable in medieval Europe. It was walrus ivory, the long white tusks of the walrus. To get these tusks, they had to go on long, dangerous hunting trips. They sailed far to the north, to a place they called the Northern Hunting Grounds. There, they hunted the huge walruses. The tusks were then shipped all the way to Europe. In Europe, artists carved them into beautiful luxury goods. Things like crucifixes for the church and fancy chess sets for rich nobles. In return for this precious ivory, the Greenlanders got the things they could not make themselves. They got iron to make tools and weapons. They got wood to build ships and houses. Remember, there were no trees in Greenland, and they got grain to make bread and ale. For almost 500 years, this system worked. This delicate balance held. They were Europeans, living European lives, but their whole economy was sustained by a special Arctic resource. Then, they vanished. The disappearance of the Norse Vikings from Greenland is one of history's greatest mysteries. It is a question that has fascinated people for centuries. What happened to them? It was not a sudden event. It was not one big disaster. It was a slow, creeping collapse, a slow fading away that happened over many generations. The Western settlement was the first to go. It was smaller and more isolated. It was abandoned sometime in the middle or late 1300s. The larger Eastern settlement survived for longer. We have one last final look into their world. It comes from a wedding. A wedding that took place at Valsey Church in the year 1408. The records from this wedding were taken back to Europe. They describe a normal community, people getting married, life going on. There was no sign of panic, no hint that the end was near. A ship returned to Europe from Greenland in the year 1410, and after that, silence. Nothing. For centuries, Europe heard nothing more from Greenland. The connection was broken. Finally, many years later, in 1721, a missionary decided to go and find them. His name was Hans Egede. He wanted to find the lost Norse Christians. But when he arrived, all he found were empty ruins. The farms were abandoned, the churches were crumbling, and the Norse people were gone. Instead, he found a completely different people living there, the Inuit. And the Inuit had no memory of what happened to the Vikings. So what did happen? For a long, long time, people believed a simple story. The story was that the Vikings failed to adapt. The theory was this: the climate started to get colder around the year 1300. This was the beginning of a time called the Little Ice Age. The Vikings were stubborn farmers. They refused to change their European way of life. They refused to learn from the Inuit people. The Inuit had superior skills for living in the Arctic. And so, the Vikings died out because they were not flexible. But now we know the real picture is much more complicated and much more tragic. The climate change was real, and it was a very big problem. The Little Ice Age brought colder winters and shorter, cooler summers. This was bad for their farms. The grass did not grow as well. Their animals got weaker. The sea ice also grew. For more of the year, the ocean was frozen. The ice clogged the shipping lanes. It made the journey from Europe to Greenland even more dangerous. Eventually, it may have cut them off completely. But that was not the only problem. Their whole economy collapsed. Remember the walrus ivory, their main export? Well, something happened in Europe. New trade routes opened up to Africa. And this brought elephant ivory into the European market. Elephant ivory was bigger, better, and cheaper than walrus ivory. Suddenly, the Greenlanders' most valuable product was worthless. Nobody wanted to buy it anymore. And at the same time, another disaster struck Europe: the Black Death, the terrible plague that killed about half the population of Norway. Norway was Greenland's main trading partner. It was their lifeline. Suddenly, there were fewer ships, fewer customers, and less reason for anyone in Europe to risk the dangerous journey to Greenland. So, the Norse Greenlanders were caught in a perfect storm, a terrible combination of problems, all happening at the same time. 1, climate change. 2, economic collapse. 3, total isolation. Did they try to adapt? Did they try to change? Yes, they did. We can see it in their bones. Scientists have studied the skeletons of the Norse Greenlanders. And by doing something called isotope analysis, they can tell what these people ate. And the bones tell a clear story. Over time, their diet changed a lot. They started eating much more food from the sea. Towards the end, they were eating almost only seals. They became hunters more than farmers. They were trying to adapt. They were trying to survive. But it was too little, too late. There was no single disaster. There were no signs of a big war with the Inuit people. Although the Inuit oral traditions do tell stories of some conflicts. Instead, it seems the society just withered away, like a plant without water. It got smaller and weaker and sadder, generation by generation. What happened to the very last ones? We will never know for sure. Maybe they tried to sail back to Iceland or Norway, and their ships were lost at sea. Or maybe the population just slowly declined. Until one day, the last Norse Greenlander died alone. Their passing was not recorded by history. Their story ended in silence. By the middle of the 1400s, the great European experiment in Greenland was over. The churches fell silent. The farms returned to the wild. And the island returned to the people who had truly learned how to live there. The people who had mastered the art of Arctic survival. Section 3. The Inuit Resilience and European Return. While the world of the Norse Vikings was slowly falling apart, a very different story was happening. Across the rest of Greenland, a new culture was rising. This is not a story of collapse. It is a story of incredible strength and success. It is a story of resilience. While the Vikings vanished, another culture grew and thrived. These people were the Thule people. They are the direct ancestors of the Inuit people who live in Greenland today. And their story is a powerful lesson. It is the sharpest possible contrast to the story of the Norse. The Norse failed, the Thule succeeded. Why? The Thule people started their journey from Alaska. They began migrating east around the year 1000 CE. They arrived in the northwestern part of Greenland around the 12th or 13th century. This was a couple of hundred years after the Norse had already settled in the south. Unlike the first people, the Paleo-Inuit, the Thule people had a new set of tools, a revolutionary set of technologies. These tools made them the undisputed masters of the Arctic. Nobody was better at living in this cold, icy world. Their genius was in their technology. They invented and perfected amazing things. First, they developed the kajak. You might know it as a kayak. The kayak is a small, light boat. It is very fast and very easy to move. It allowed a single hunter to move silently through the water. He could sneak up on seals and other animals. The kayak was a perfect hunting machine. For moving families and carrying their things, they had a different boat, a larger boat called the umiak. This was often called the woman's boat because women usually rowed it. And on the land, they had another amazing invention. They used the power of dogs. They created the dog sled. A team of strong dogs could pull a sled over the snow and ice for huge distances. This gave them mobility, the ability to travel in a way that no one in the Arctic had ever seen before. Their hunting tools were also very advanced. They used special harpoons. A harpoon is like a spear for hunting sea animals. The Thule harpoons had heads that could detach or come off after they hit the animal. This was a very clever design. It was perfect for hunting big sea mammals. Animals like the walrus, the narwhal, and especially the bowhead whale. The bowhead whale is a giant of the ocean, and hunting one was a huge success for a Thule community. A single whale provided an enormous amount of food, meat to eat. Blubber, which is a thick layer of fat, could be melted into oil. This oil was used in lamps to light their homes and to heat their homes during the long, dark winter. Their winter homes were also very smart. They were semi-underground. This means they were partly built into the earth. This helped to keep them warm. And what did they use for the roof? They used the huge bones of the whales they hunted. The Thule culture was built around the gifts of the sea. They were a coastal people. They lived by the ocean, and they understood its rhythms. They were always moving, always adapting. And this is the most important difference between the Thule and the Norse. This is the key to the mystery. The Norse were farmers. They were tied to their land, to their specific pastures where their cows and sheep could eat grass. They were locked into a European way of life, a system that was a very bad fit for the Arctic. When the climate got colder and their farms failed, their rigid system broke. They could not change fast enough. The Thule, on the other hand, were mobile hunters. Their whole society was flexible. It was designed to move. If hunting was not good in one area, they did not stay there and starve. They packed up their tents. They got in their boats or on their sleds, and they moved to a better place. Think about the Little Ice Age. The cold weather was a disaster for the Norse. But for the Thule, it was different. The colder weather created more sea ice. And the expanding sea ice, which cut off the Norse ships, was actually an advantage for the Thule. It created a bigger platform for them to hunt seals on. The Thule people did not fight the Arctic. They did not try to conquer it. They moved with it. They listened to it. They understood its rhythms and its secrets. For a while, the two groups, the Norse and the Thule, lived on the same island, but probably with very little contact. They lived in different areas. The Norse in the south, the Thule in the north. The Norse wrote about the people they met in the north. They called them Skrælingjar, and the Inuit people have oral traditions, stories passed down from generation to generation. These stories tell of encounters with the Kavlunite, which means foreigners or strangers. As the Norse culture faded and disappeared, the Thule culture became dominant. It spread all along the entire coastline of Greenland. They did not vanish. They did not disappear. They evolved. They changed over time. And they gave rise to the modern Inuit of Greenland, who carry their amazing legacy today. For several hundred years, the Inuit were the only people in Greenland. They were the masters of the island. In Europe, people mostly forgot about Greenland. It became a land of myth and mystery again. Then in the year 1721, the story changed once more. A man named Hans Egede sailed from Denmark, Norway to Greenland. He was a Christian missionary. His first mission was to find the lost Norse settlements. He wanted to find the descendants of the Vikings. He believed they were still there, and he wanted to bring them back to the Christian faith. He landed near the place where the old Western settlement used to be. But he did not find any Norsemen. He did not find any Vikings. All he found were the old empty ruins. And he found a vibrant, living Inuit culture. These people had no idea what happened to the people Hans Egede was looking for. So Hans Egede changed his mission. If he could not save the lost Christians, he would try to convert the Inuit people. He started a trading post, and he started a Christian mission. He called it Godthab, which means good hope. This was the beginning of a new chapter in Greenland's history, the beginning of Danish colonization. Over the next 200 years, Denmark made its control over the island stronger. More towns were built, more trading posts were opened, the Danish language was introduced, and the traditional Inuit economy was changed. It was reshaped around trading furs and skins with Denmark. This colonial period was a time of big changes, and these changes were often very difficult and painful for the Inuit people. Their traditional ways of life were disrupted. Things were turned upside down. But this period also brought other things. It brought modern medicine. It brought schools and formal education. The society that was created was a complex mix. a mix of ancient Inuit tradition and new Danish influence. Then came World War II. In Europe, Nazi Germany occupied Denmark. Suddenly, Greenland was cut off from its colonial power. The United States, worried about the island's safety, stepped in. They helped protect Greenland. They built important air bases there. America realized how important Greenland was. Its location was very strategic. This experience during the war gave Greenlanders a new feeling, a taste of self-reliance, a feeling of being in control of their own lives. After the war, things could not go back to the way they were before. The old colonial system was no longer an option. A new journey had begun. The journey toward a new, modern identity. Section 4. The Modern Nation and Its Future. The end of World War II was a big turning point for Greenland. Everything started to change, and change fast. The old colonial status was officially finished in 1953. In that year, Greenland became an integrated county of the Danish kingdom, like another part of Denmark. But this was not enough for the people of Greenland. The desire for true self-determination, the wish to control their own destiny, grew stronger and stronger. This led to a very important day in 1979. This was a major milestone. Greenland achieved home rule. This established a local Greenlandic government for the first time in hundreds of years. They could now make many of their own decisions. But the journey did not stop there. The momentum continued. In 1985, Greenland did something very unusual. It became the only territory ever to leave the European Union's predecessor. Why did they leave? It was mostly because of arguments about fishing quotas. Fishing was, and still is, so important to Greenland. They wanted to control their own waters. Then came another huge step. In the year 2009, Denmark passed the Self-Government Act. This was a very powerful act. It recognized the Greenlandic people as a distinct people under international law. This means the world sees them as their own people, with their own culture and their own rights. The act also gave them the right to self-determination, the right to choose their own future. It transferred control over almost everything to the government in Greenland's capital city, Nuuk. Things like the police force, the courts, and very importantly, control over natural resources. Denmark kept control of only a few things like foreign policy and defense. And Denmark continues to give Greenland a lot of money every year. This is called a block grant. This money is very important. It makes up more than half of the Greenlandic government's entire budget. Today, Greenland is a self-governing nation. About 56,000 people live there, and the vast majority of these people are of Inuit descent. They are the children of the Thule people, the great survivors. And in their politics today, one big question is more important than all the others: the question of full independence. The dream of a sovereign Greenland, a completely independent country, is shared by most political parties. Recent polls or surveys show that a large majority of Greenlanders support this idea. They want their own nation. But the road to independence is not easy. It is full of big challenges. The biggest challenge is the economy. The Greenlandic economy is dangerously dependent on just one thing: fishing. Fishing accounts for over 90% of all their exports. This is a very risky situation. If something bad happens to the fishing industry, the whole economy could collapse. So, The central problem is this: how can Greenland become independent from the huge annual payment from Denmark? How can they wean themselves off this money without a massive drop in their standard of living? And the polls show that people are worried about this. When people are asked if they want independence, most say yes. But then they are asked another question. Would you still want independence if it means you have less money and a lower standard of living? When asked this, the support for independence drops a lot. And this is where the story comes full circle. This is where Greenland's ancient secret enters its final, most dramatic chapter. The ice. The very same ice that has defined Greenland's entire history. The ice that challenged the first peoples. The ice that defeated the Vikings. The ice that the Thule people learned to master. That same ice is now disappearing. The ice is receding. It is melting. And as it melts, it is revealing a new kind of secret. Not a secret about the past, but a secret about the future. Climate change is warming the Arctic. It is warming it at least twice as fast as the rest of the world. And Greenland is at the center of this change. It is ground zero. The giant ice sheet is melting at an incredible speed. It is losing hundreds of billions of tons of ice every single year. For the rest of the world, this is a huge problem. It means our sea levels are rising, threatening coastal cities everywhere. For the people of Greenland, the change is very personal. It disrupts their traditional way of life, the way they hunt. It threatens the animals they depend on. But this crisis also creates a strange and dangerous paradox, a situation with two opposite sides. The problem is also an opportunity. The melting ice is opening up new shipping routes through the Arctic Ocean. It is uncovering land that has been under ice for thousands of years. This land could be used for farming, literally turning parts of Greenland green again. And most importantly, the retreating ice is making it easier to access Greenland's immense mineral wealth. Underneath all the rock and ice, Greenland holds a geological treasure trove, a huge collection of valuable minerals. Scientists think Greenland has some of the largest undeveloped deposits of rare earth elements in the whole world. What are rare earth elements? They are special minerals that are essential for our modern technology. We need them for everything, for our smartphones, for our electric cars, for wind turbines that create clean energy, and for advanced military equipment. This potential wealth, all these valuable minerals, is seen by many in Greenland as the key to economic independence from Denmark. It is the silver bullet, the one thing that could finally provide the money to fund a sovereign, independent nation. And because of this, Greenland has suddenly become a geopolitical chessboard in the 21st century. Big, powerful countries are now very interested in this remote Arctic island. The United States has a very important and strategic space base there, the Pituffik Space Base. America has made its interest in Greenland very clear. China has tried to get involved, offering to invest in mining projects. The European Union sees Greenland's minerals as critical for its own economic security. Even technology billionaires are funding teams of people to search for these minerals in Greenland. Everyone is watching. Everyone wants a piece of the treasure. But the dream of an independent Greenland funded by mining faces a very harsh reality. As of early 2026, there is no active rare earth mining in Greenland. None. Why not? Because the timeless challenges of Greenland are still there. The environment is brutal and unforgiving. There is no infrastructure like roads or ports in the remote areas where the minerals are, and the cost of building mines and getting the minerals out is enormous. On top of all that, there is another big challenge: strong opposition from local people. Many people in Greenland are worried about the environmental impact of mining. They are worried it will damage the beautiful, pristine landscape. One of the biggest concerns is about radioactive materials that are often found with rare earth elements. This concern was so strong that in 2021, the Greenlandic Parliament voted to ban mining at one of the world's biggest potential rare earth projects. So the people of Greenland are caught in a profound dilemma, a very deep and difficult choice. To achieve their dream of true independence, must they say yes to a huge mining industry? An industry that could scar the very landscape that defines their culture and their identity? The secret of Greenland, it turns out, was never just about the past. It was not just about the ghosts of the Sakak people. It was not just about the mystery of the lost Vikings. The real secret is about the future. It's about an island that was on the edge of the world for centuries. And now suddenly, it has become central to the world's future. Geopolitically, economically, and environmentally. The long, long human story of struggle against the ice has come full circle. Now, the disappearance of that same ice may decide the fate of a new nation. And it may also decide the fate of the world itself. So, the story of Greenland is a long, long story. It is a human story that is 4,500 years old. From the very first hunters who bravely crossed the frozen sea, to the ambitious Vikings who built a piece of Europe on its shores, to the resilient Thule people who learned to master its rhythms and survive. Greenland has always been a crucible, a place that tests everyone who comes there. It has rewarded the people who were willing to adapt and change, and it has punished those who were not. The ghosts of the Norse Vikings are still there. Their silent, crumbling churches still stand in the southern fjords. They are a timeless warning for all of us. They built a world that lasted for 500 years. That is a very long time. But they saw it all taken away by climate change, by economic problems, and by a broken connection to the outside world. Their story is not just an old, curious mystery. It is a parable, a story with a lesson for our own time. Today, the descendants of the amazing Thule people, the modern people of Greenland, are at a very important moment, the most critical moment in their history. They are working toward their dream of full independence. At the same time, they are facing the huge challenges of a global climate crisis that is changing their home faster than any other place on Earth. The final secret of the world's largest island is this: its fate is now connected to our own fate. The melting of its ice will change the shape of our coastlines around the world, and the choices made in Nuuk, the capital of Greenland, about its valuable resources will affect the global economy. Those choices will be felt in the halls of power in Washington, in Brussels, and in Beijing. The long human story on Greenland is no longer a remote Arctic tale. It is now a story about all of us. It is a story about our shared future on a planet that is changing. What happens next on this vast continent of ice will be a test. a test of everything we have learned from the past and everything we have forgotten. Thank you for listening to this story with me. Learning a story like this in English is a wonderful achievement. Please remember that learning a new language is a journey. It takes time. It is okay to go slow. Every single sentence you understood today is a victory. Every new word you learned is a step forward. You are doing an amazing job. Please keep going. Don't give up. If you enjoyed our story today, I would be so grateful if you could give it a like. Or maybe subscribe to our channel. It's a small, simple action, but it really helps our podcast grow and reach more learners like you. And please feel free to leave a comment. What was the most interesting part of Greenland's story for you? I would love to read your thoughts. Thank you again from the bottom of my heart for being here. It was a pleasure to share this time with you. See you next time, my friend.